The Harrigans are currently in the midst of a battle that has already grown unsustainable in terms of financial burdens. But Joanne Froggatt, is inadvertently contributing to the escalated situation. In the episode of MobLand that aired last week, titled The Crossroads, the entire family, with the exception of Brendan and Serafina, traveled to the estate in the Cotswolds in order to prepare themselves for the impact that the Stevensons would have on them. This included Harry D'Souza's Tom Hardy, reluctant brooding. On the other hand, Jan made the decision to take a break and meet her newly discovered friend at a nearby bar after receiving a phone call from an emotional Alice, played by Emily Barber. At that location, she was subjected to a series of inquisitive questions from Alice, and then Paul, Emmett J. Scanlon, took her back to her house. In light of the current circumstances, it appears that Jan will be required to provide a substantial explanation for her choice to vacate the property, and Alice will also be required to confront him. In this exclusive sneak peek at the upcoming episode of Helter Skelter, which will air on Sunday, the father of the crime family, Conrad, played by Pierce Brosnan, confronts Jan directly about her plan to leave the country property in order to meet up with her friend. "Oh, things are easy to understand. You can go wherever you want, you tell me. Your bodyguards are hired. Are you aware of what just occurred to Brendan when he made the decision to leave the reservation?" "It would be a terrible thing for me to happen to you," he replies. In addition, he insists that she phone Alice so that he can have a conversation with her, and Jan finally gives in to his request after some hesitation. Alice is completely taken aback when she receives the call, which occurs while she is in the midst of a jog. "I'd like to invite you to come down and pay me a short visit. We could eat supper together and get to know one another better. How does that sit with you?" This is what he tells her. "It is quite appealing to me. When did you feel like thinking?" It is her response. It is then that he says, "Tomorrow." In the event that Alice decides to accept this meeting, her excited co-workers would undoubtedly anticipate that she will make an effort to interrogate Conrad in order to obtain solutions. However, it is highly likely that he will not be as receptive to information as Jan is. And if Maeve, played by Helen Mirren, is present, the risk to Alice might be twice as high. With only 3 episodes remaining to go, the most popular crime drama of the year, MobLand, is not showing any signs of slowing down. We have seen what happens in the past when a Harrigan suspected someone of being treacherous. Things between the Harrigans are more strained than they have ever been after the conclusion of episode 7, in which Harry, Tom Hardy, narrowly saved the life of Serafina, Mandeep Dhillon, by calling in a favor from Kat Janet McTeer. On the other hand, in episode 8, an additional new player will be introduced into the mix, which will set the stage for the conclusion of the remaining episodes. Episode 8 of MobLand, titled Helter Skelter, will be available on Paramount Plus on Sunday, May 18th. Once this is over, there are just 2 episodes remaining to watch. Streaming of the season finale will begin on June 1st. When new episodes of MobLand are released, then they are made available for streaming at midnight on the same day. This indicates that the 8th episode of MobLand, titled Helter Skelter, will begin streaming on Paramount Plus at 12 o'clock in the morning, the 18th of May, Eastern Daylight Time. Indeed, this indicates that it will be available to watch at approximately 9 o'clock at night. On the evening of Saturday, May 17th, at the time of the Pacific Daylight Time, there are multiple storylines in MobLand that are all heating up at the same moment. Following the conclusion of episode 7, the Harrigans narrowly averted going to war with the Stevensons, but the passing of Brendan, played by Daniel Betts, will not make either Conrad, played by Pierce Brosnan, or Maeve, played by Helen Mirren, happy in the least. According to the official synopsis provided by Paramount Plus, the answer to the issue of who Tattersall is likely the most surprising turn of events that occurs in this episode. It is safe to assume that you will be familiar with this actor if you have seen the film Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. In addition, if you saw the movie Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, you will recognize this individual. Nevertheless, there is no denying that Tattersall is a game changer at the 11th hour. And despite the fact that his introduction resolves a few things, the program will nevertheless keep you guessing right up to the extremely end. When episode 8 is over, there are just 2 episodes left before the dramatic finale, MobLand, The most popular crime drama of the year is not showing any signs of slowing down, and there are just 3 episodes left to go before the season winds down. Things between the Harrigans are more strained than they have ever been after the conclusion of episode 7, in which Harry, Tom Hardy, narrowly saved the life of Serafina, Mandeep Dhillon, by calling in a favor from Kat, Janet McTeer. On the other hand, in episode 8, an additional new player will be introduced into the mix, which will set the stage for the conclusion of the remaining episodes. The 7th episode of MobLand had Richie Stevenson dealing a significant blow to the Harrigans. However, he was unable to inflict any further harm on them because of the mysterious new figure that Janet McTeer had created. In order to avoid the killing of Serafina Harrigan at the hands of Jaime Lopez, a cartel lord acting on behalf of his business partner Richie Stevenson, Harry made a request to unknown individuals at the conclusion of episode 7. This was done in order to prevent an accident from occurring. As a form of retribution for the killings of Tommy and Ron Stevenson, Brendan Harrigan, the eldest son of Conrad and Maeve Harrigan, met a horrible end. The call came too late to save him. In order for the Harrigan family to be able to see the killings from the Cotswolds, Jamie and Richie organized a live stream of the executions. The Harrigan family was unable to do anything about it. Harry D'Souza, played by Tom Hardy, was the last chance for Brendan and Serafina. Despite the fact that he did not arrive at Jaime's warehouse in time, he was still able to come through and, kind of, save the day like he always does. The skilled and well-connected fixer who worked for the Harrigans made a single phone call, which was sufficient to persuade a cartel boss to immediately terminate his relationship with Richie. Donnie, the enigmatic guy who has traveled to Zosha's garage on 2 separate occasions in search of Harry, is the first person that Harry calls. Donnie is the one who brings Harry and Kat together, and it is highly probable that Kat was the one who had been sending Donnie to find Harry in earlier episodes. Kat, whose name is stated as Kat McAllister, is seen in a private jet, performing some kind of work with financial records, despite the fact that she is only shown for a brief period of time on our screens. Despite the fact that very nothing else is disclosed, she makes a phone call to Jaime, who also happens to use her first name. The mere fact that she speaks to Jaime is sufficient for him to interrupt the video stream and halt Serafina's execution. Having a cartel boss do your bidding is not an easy achievement. Therefore, it is very evident that Kat is some kind of internationally recognized figure of tremendous authority. This is because it is a really impressive accomplishment. Despite the fact that she is wealthy, money can only go so far in most cases. It is highly probable that Kat is a significant person of some kind, possibly a politician or an incredibly high-ranking member of a worldwide criminal organization. Janet McTeer, an English actress who has been a stalwart of both the stage and the film for decades, currently plays the role of Kat. McTeer is generally acclaimed for her work. The 63-year-old actress has been nominated for 2 Academy Awards and a Primetime Emmy for her roles on both the big screen and the small screen. She has also been honored with a Tony Award and a Laurence Olivier Award for her work on the stage. In her most recent film appearance, she was seen in the film Ozark, which is part of the Divergent film series, as well as in the horror comedy film The Menu. In addition to Helen Mirren and Tom Hardy, she is the 3rd actor to be nominated for an Academy Award for their roles in the film MobLand. It is evident that Kat and Harry have a history that is not yet known, which dates back to a time long before the events that took place in MobLand. This is the reason why Harry was able to call in a favor at all. Despite this, he appears uncertain about whether or not to call in such a nuclear option, and it is immediately apparent why he is making this decision. Kat makes sure to bring to Harry's attention the fact that he is now indebted to her for a favor, and it appears that she will want to capitalize on something that will get Harry into trouble. It is very evident that Kat is a precarious individual, as she rescued Serafina in order to get Harry for the purpose of employing him at a later time. After the 7th episode of MobLand, a new player entered the game in the form of Janet McTeer's mystery character, Kat. There is a notion that is very plausible that explains why Kat possesses a great deal more power than the other crime bosses that have been revealed up until currently. By the time the 7th episode came to a close, Richie Stevenson had begun to make amends to the Harrigans for the murders of his wife and kid. On the other hand, he was prevented from causing even more harm to his competitors by a single phone call from a lady who was only identified as Kat. Kat prevents Jaime Lopez, who is a member of the cartel that has not yet been named, from carrying out the execution of Serafina Harrigan. Over the course of 7 episodes, MobLand has focused almost entirely on the tensions that have been building up between the Harrigan and Stevenson crime organizations, both of which are involved in the distribution of goods and firearms in London. Following the commission of 2 murders, the business competition became a full-scale war, which increased the stakes for everyone involved. The 7th episode, on the other hand, acted as a significant reminder of how much larger the world is in terms of international organized crime. If MobLand Season 2 is produced, there's a considerable likelihood that the show's scope will expand significantly, and Kat McCallister may be the key to unlocking the door to a worldwide future for the show. Due to the fact that Kat McCallister, played by Janet McTeer, only makes a brief appearance on screen at the conclusion of Episode 7, very little information about her has been disclosed up until this point. It is revealed that she is the person who is responsible for the sporadic sightings of Donnie, the enigmatic individual who has made many visits to Zosha in search of Harry. In the end, it is Donnie who Harry calls in his hour of need, in which Brendan and Serafina are literally on the verge of being eliminated. The fact that she is seen working with financial records of some kind while riding in a luxurious private plane makes it very evident that she is financially supported. However, it is evident that there is more to her incredible amount of authority than meets the eye. Simply by speaking with Richie Stevenson for a brief period of time, she is able to utterly destroy the commercial relationship that Jaime Lopez and the cartel have with Richie Stevenson. Considering that someone who causes the cartel to tremble in their boots is not someone to be trifled with, it is evident that Kat is much more than just a billionaire who is throwing money around for the sake of gaining power. Throughout addition to this, she has a distinctive American accent, which stands out even more among the distractingly poor accents that are prevalent throughout MobLand. The notion that Kat is a powerful individual working for a global organization, notably the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, of the United States of America, is the one that is the most plausible and widely accepted explanation for her identity. It is undeniable that her American accent is consistent with that notion, but what is more significant is the fact that her relationship with Jaime Lopez is pointing in that direction. Knowing that they are unable to stop the flow of narcotics into the United States, the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, has been suspected and accused of being in bed with the cartels for a long time. They collaborate with the cartels to limit and/or direct the flow of drugs in order to use it for their own objectives. Considering that Jaime uses Kat's first name, it is obvious that they have been together for a very long time. It is possible that Kat's allegedly extravagant lifestyle can be explained by the fact that she is a corrupt CIA official who is receiving money from the cartels. In addition, the fact that Jaime utterly destroys his entire relationship with Richie Stevenson, a rival gang, for her is further indication that she is involved in the way that his business is run. If listening to Kat keeps the flow of drugs throughout the world running, then that would certainly explain why he leaps with just a word from her. Since the cartels do not do favors lightly, this would explain why he jumps with just a word from her. In the beginning of MobLand, the entrance of Kat serves as a significant reminder of how limited the scope of the story has been up to this point. Despite the fact that the explosions, deaths, and action all have a high-powered feel to them, the fact that Kat was able to shut down the cartel with a phone call puts into perspective how inconsequential the Harrigan and Stevenson squabbles are on the grand scale of international organized crime. It would appear that both Irish criminal families could be subject to the influence of organizations that possess a great deal more power than they do. In Episode 7, the core storyline action is moved to Antwerp, which is located in Belgium. This, in conjunction with the involvement of Jaime and Kat, paints a vivid picture of how hopelessly outgunned Conrad 100 guns Harrigan really is in any gang battle. Richie is still able to keep his head on straight and is able to ask for favors from higher authorities when he absolutely needs them. This is despite the fact that he has suffered unimaginable losses. During this time, the justifiably paranoid and deranged duo of Conrad and Maeve Harrigan would be hopelessly and hilariously lost without Tom Hardy's character. Harry D'Souza, as demonstrated by his desperate call to Kat McAllister. Considering that MobLand is getting closer and closer to the end of its season, it is almost probable that Harry's history with Kat McAllister will play a significant role in the show. If Kat is a member of the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, then Harry could very well be a member of MI6, which is more well known as the United Kingdom Secret Intelligence Service. MI6, Harry locates a person who can tell him who took Brendan and Serafina, based solely on a regional gang tattoo that was found on a deceased assailant. He does this without any doubt or difficulty at all. After that, he goes on to eliminate a whole warehouse full of henchmen while he is on his way to obtaining information from a criminal leader. This suggests that he may have been a former member of the Special Air Service, SAS, which is the Special Forces unit of the British Army. There is no doubt that Harry is someone who has had extensive training in the military, which is significantly more than what one would receive by serving in a conventional branch of the military. Kat makes a huge deal out of the fact that Harry owes her a favor when she saves Serafina Harrigan at the very last second. Based on his reaction, it is possible that this favor is something that is connected to his abilities or links from the past. As the final episode of MobLand approaches, it is almost certain that Harry's history with Kat McAllister will play a significant role in the show. When discussing MobLand, a show that delves into the criminal underworld of London and other countries, it would not come as a surprise to learn that we would come across extremely powerful individuals. Kat McAllister, played by Janet McTeer, was introduced in the most recent episode, The Crossroads, which brought about a shift in the power dynamic. In the previous episode, Antwerp Blues, the sheer act of hearing her name shouted out loud was sufficient to cause Harry's, Tom Hardy, stoic demeanor to crack for a brief period. However, in this episode, we see her power and what the potentially devastating implications of it could be. In the conflict that took place between the Harrigans and the Stevensons, Kat unquestionably is responsible for a defining moment. In the aftermath of being kidnapped in Antwerp on Richie's orders, Brendan, Daniel Betts, and Serafina encounter Jaime Lopez, Jordi Mola, a Mexican mobster who runs fentanyl with Richie around Europe. Jaime Lopez despises Conrad, Pierce Brosnan, due to a racist remark that Conrad made to Jaime's father in the past. As a result, regardless of the agreements that Serafina provides, Jaime is adamantly opposed to considering any other options. He gives the order for the two individuals to be chained up and executed as the Harrigans watch. However, as soon as Harry was informed of the situation, he quickly called Kat. Kat put a stop to the massacre by simply instructing Jaime to halt it over the phone, even though all of the discussions had been unsuccessful. In spite of the fact that Jaime has already slain Brendan, the fact that he is listening to Kat is what makes this circumstance so amazing. Consequently, despite the fact that the circumstance will make Richie and the Harrigans enemies, thereby throwing a big spanner in the works for his fentanyl business, it is evident that Jaime would prefer that his business suffer than to cross Kat, which paints a scary image of Kat's dominance. Additionally, the disgraceful manner in which Brendan passed away served as a contrast to the dramatic moment of power and agency. Despite the fact that Kat is able to make anything happen in a moment that is so tense and close to the edge of disaster, one could argue that it was overdramatic. Brendan, on the other hand, does not have a conclusion that is satisfactory. He has urinated and defecated in his pants as he is crying, and he is currently tied to a chair against his will. Despite the fact that Serafina assures him that it was not his fault, what he really desired was the acceptance of his family, and he was unable to get it. As a result, he had nothing heroic to hold to as a character. Even for the most innocent people, such as Brendan or Vron, Annie Cooper before him, the consequences of these power brokers may be very real and extremely terrible. This serves as a reminder that even though there are people who have an influence that is almost unreal, the consequences of these power brokers can be very real and extremely brutal. Furthermore, as was said earlier, the concept of powerful people being present in a crime drama is not a novel one. However, the reason that Kat's introduction is such a game changer is not only because she is being portrayed as powerful, but also because she is a member of a different organization that is significantly larger than Conrad. The first shots we get of her all scream elitism, and this is true even if we ignore the fact that she interferes with Richie and Jaime's business and Harry's reaction to her name. Kat is on a private jet, flying above the clouds and signing checks when someone else picks up the phone for her. While everyone else we meet in the show is on the ground, the only thing we manage to see is Harry get into a helicopter, which Bella, Lara Pulver, referred to as sexy. This is a reflection of the symbolism that these modes of transportation mean in relation to status. Not only does this demonstrate her collection of wealth, but moreover, the fact that she is so far up gives the impression that she is a god who looks down on simple mortals from a kingdom that is inaccessible to them. The sheer fact that Kat is of a different nationality is another indication that she belongs to a different category of criminals. Hearing the American accent in this program, especially with Donnie, Alex Fine, is so foreign when we are listening to characters who speak Irish and Cockney, and it suggests that the story and its characters have a far wider worldwide reach of power. When Serafina kept trying to make a better deal in order to save her skin, Jaime pointed out to her that the Harrigans are actually a more modest organization than she had previously thought. It would appear that Jaime, and more crucially, Kat, are concentrating on gaining influence on a global scale, even though they have authority over London. At the end of the day, this places Harry in a situation that is extremely uncomfortable. It was pointed out by Kat that Harry owes her a favor at this point. Already, she was making an effort to get in touch with him in order to discuss having a job with him. However, currently, rather than her coming to Harry, he has placed himself in a position that is more vulnerable. It appears that Harry is beginning to suffer the effects of his role as the problem solver for the Harrigans. Consequently, what emotions will he experience now that he is a debtor to another, more powerful gangster? A concept that could be even more perilous for Harry is the possibility that Conrad will react negatively to the fact that his best soldier is someone else's puppet. As a result of the presence of a rat within the family and Maeve's, Helen Mirren, manipulative activities behind the scenes, Conrad already has reservations about Harry's allegiances. It is for this reason that the stakes are only going to continue to increase, regardless of how many fires Harry puts out. In spite of the fact that he appears to be relied upon by everyone, he has very few people on whom he can trust. One gets the impression that Harry will, at some point in the future, be put in a position where he must choose between serving Conrad and Kat or becoming an informant to the authorities. Under any other circumstances, it is highly improbable that he will be able to survive by making a self-centered decision that prioritizes the safety of himself and his family. This option highlights the tragic nature of his character and the significance of Kat's arrival. MobLand, the most recent gritty, crime-based television success created by Guy Ritchie, is now inching closer and closer to its last straight, with only 3 episodes left to air. With a great 76% critical rating and a 77% audience score on review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, MobLand continues to impress week after week, and it has already established itself as a tremendous smash for Paramount+. With this in mind, the story of 2 violent fighting families' next step on their journey has the entire world nervous and anticipating it. The recent release of the promotional video for the next episode 8, Helter Skelter, has surely gotten the fanbase talking about it. There's a variety of teasers for the advancement of many of MobLand's story strands in the upcoming episode that can be viewed below. Perhaps the most interesting of these teasers is the fallout of Maeve's, Helen Mirren betrayal, which is ready and waiting for viewers to experience. As the go-to Harrigan crime fixer, Harry, Tom Hardy, prepares to leave, the shock of not being able to stop Brendan's, Daniel Bett's ruthless fate at the hands of Jaime's crew will weigh heavily on his shoulders. This shock will only be made worse by the implosion of his private life that is about to occur as his wife Joanne Froggatt, gets ready to leave. In the world of MobLand, there is never a dull moment, and episode 8 appears to be precisely the same. A summary of the upcoming episode appears to be as follows. Maeve extends an olive branch. Kevin questions the wisdom of a sit-down with Jaime. Tattersall offers Fisk and Mukasa a new point of entry. Harry comes to Kat for a favor as Richie, at the Sinful Monkey, contemplates a new affiliation. Fans might be split down the middle, with some rooting for their relationship to withstand the lows of a life of crime, and others desperate for John to find an escape route from said life. but it is unanimously agreed upon that the partnership of Jan and Harry is one of MobLand's most enthralling. Despite the fact that it appears that the two are getting closer and closer to the end of their relationship, there is still no clear evidence that Jan is leaving for good. This suggests that there are plenty of more twists and turns in this story as the final 3 episodes are released. During an interview with Therese Laxon of Collider, Froggatt herself hinted at the specific circumstances that could lead to Jan's decision to leave her boyfriend. She asked, "What would it take for Jan to go?" Now, that is a really important question. It is going to need a lot of effort. It requires a lot of effort. Simply put, she has a deep and abiding affection for this man. Certainly, she desires more from him on an emotional level. She has developed as a person as she has gotten older, and I believe that Harry has probably remained the same. However, she is now searching for something a little bit more from him. She's kind of poking him, going like, "Hi, I'm here," but she's not really saying anything. "Would you mind if I got your attention?" However, we will have to wait and see if she is successful in attracting his attention or if she is required to make significant choices. Beginning on Monday, May 19th, 2019, Paramount Plus will be broadcasting the 9th episode of the MobLand series.